Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm just going to wait for a couple minutes for people to be able to jump in, and we'll get started here. All right, so 2 minutes after, why don't we get cooking? First of all, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking your time today to join our fireside chat. My name is Aaron Brossoit. I'm the CEO of Golden Shovel Agency, and this is one of our Golden Shovel expert webinars. Today's format is going to be a little bit different. We're going to I'll introduce our guest and we'll be doing a little presentation, but then we're going to have a discussion and a chat for a while about the future of retail. And afterwards, I just want you guys to know that this webinar is being recorded. So the videos will be made available. You'll be able to find them. I'll both send them out as well as be able to find them on the Golden Shovel site and share them with the group over at the Retail Coach. And if you have any questions, we'll be having some discussion, but the questions will open up to the public. So feel free to put those in the question box down below in the Zoom panel. And we'll get to those a little bit later on. So without further ado, I'm just proud to be able to introduce Aaron Farmer, president of the Retail Coach. Aaron has a degree in marketing from the Mays Business School at Texas A&M University in College Station and an MBA from Texas A&M University, Commerce. He brings to the Retail Coach knowledge of the most current research on retail and marketing trends. Prior to joining the Retail Coach, Aaron was employed in marketing research and retail development, where he worked on projects for some of America's leading retailers and restaurants, including FedEx, Kinko's, Sally Beauty Supply, Adidas, Concentra, and the National American Association of Subway Franchises. Aaron, welcome and for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to be here. We appreciate the opportunity to kind of partner with Golden Shovel on this kind of fireside chat or webinar. So, Aaron, glad to be here with you.
Well, sounds great. Why don't we start off, Aaron, and you can give us a little sense of the state of retail from your perspective. I think that'd be a good opportunity to tee up our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, I put together a couple of slides for us to run through here, but we keep getting asked that question. You know, what's next for retail? What are we going to see next week? What are we going to see a month from now, 2 months from now? And I'll tell you, I don't know that anybody knows the exact answer to that, knows exactly what we're going to see. You know, I'll tell you, we were excited at the Retail Coach about the retail industry, even into February, even into late February, and then kind of COVID-19 hit and it's had a huge impact on retail. You know, not just the national retailers and developers, but really also the small businesses, and really the small businesses have probably been hit the hardest. So I put together some slides. I figured we'd just kind of talk about some of the things we're seeing in the industry right now. And we'll kind of go from there.
So good. I'll pop up, and I'll be back to join you in a minute.
Awesome. That sounds good. Well, a couple of things. There's no question. Retail sales are down in all municipalities. National Retail Federation is expecting about a 20% drop in retail sales. Many of the communities are probably going to experience 30%, 40%, maybe even more March, April, May kind of drop in retail sales. And really we're seeing that, and where we're getting those numbers from is China. You know, looking at the retail sales and how they were impacted in China during kind of their 3-month coronavirus pandemic. That's what we're expecting. No brainers here, but consumer traffic to brick and mortar is down or non-existent. We're starting to see some of that come back in states that have opened back up. Georgia, Texas, Florida, others that are slowly kind of opening back up. We're starting to see that, you know, shoppers come back to brick and mortar. Mentioned this already, but small businesses are really taking the hardest hit. We are going to lose a large number of small businesses. And I hate to say that. I live just outside of Austin, Texas, and We actually just found out yesterday we lost our movie theater. So our movie theater has decided they could not come to an agreement with their landlord, and we're losing our movie theater. And Dripping Springs is not a large community, so we're seeing these small businesses hit hard. There are some sectors in the retail industry that are performing well or have performed well during the pandemic, and then there's some that have just crashed and done absolutely terribly. But one other thing we're seeing is a lot of the retailers and restaurants have furloughed their employees or furloughed or laid off their staff. So we're starting to see some of those hired back, but that's kind of echoed in the unemployment numbers that have come out in the last month or two that have just been horrific. So those are some of the things we're seeing in the retail industry. I mentioned there's certain sectors that have taken the hardest hit. Number one is department stores. They have taken the biggest hit out of everyone. And, this is kind of evidenced by JCPenney's. They filed for bankruptcy this week, and looks like they're going to close about 30% of their stores. So if you have a JCPenney's in your community, you're going to want to pay attention to that. Macy's is struggling. Kohl's is struggling during the pandemic. So department stores have taken a hard hit. Others that have taken hard hits have been really your casual sit-down restaurants. So everything from Olive Garden to Chili's, you name it. The to-go business is not enough to sustain them or keep them going for long term. So they're starting to open up in certain states, and they're starting to see people come back into those. But casual sit-down restaurants have taken a hit. Same thing with your quick casual restaurants. So those are your Panera Breads, your Chipotles, where you can just typically just jump in there, go through the Chipotle line and get your food and out of there. They've struggled as well. A lot of them have partnered up for curbside and delivery, but they're starting to come out of this as well. So just like department stores, your smaller apparel retailers are hurting as well. They're trying to make up for that with online business, but it's not easy to do. So another sector hurting is apparel, and then furniture and home furnishing stores. Many people just haven't thought about furniture or haven't thought about home furnishings during the pandemic. So we've seen the likes of Haverty's, we've seen the likes of Ashley Home Stores, and some others that are just, really struggling through this time. However, there are certain sectors that are growing and are doing well during the pandemic. Some of these, for example, are grocery stores. I think we're realizing as a country how essential grocery stores are. Grocery stores were struggling coming into COVID-19. They're coming out of it strong. So whether it's H-E-B if you're in Texas, whether it's Kroger or Smith's in other parts of the U.S. or some of your, Publix is another, the grocery stores are performing well. Another sector performing well are home improvement and hardware stores. So the big boxes like Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, depending on what part of the country you're in, they're doing incredibly well. And then even your smaller ones like Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware has seen a huge bump in retail sales because they're considered essential, and they have been as these states have closed down. So other ones that have done well, the dollar stores, they continue to do well. The Dollar General, Family Dollar, others that you see across the country. And then also farm and ranch stores like Tractor Supply, maybe Orscheln's. We're seeing those do incredibly well. And then gaming as well. GameStop, they've seen an uptick in sales throughout this whole time. People are stuck at home. Many people are on their computers playing games or on their game consoles. So these are some of the ones that we've seen some positive impact because of COVID-19, and likely will continue to do well in the future. So what I wanted to share with you as well, is just kind of this thought that we have, or that something that we've seen. And basically those retailers and those restaurants that were strong going into the COVID-19 pandemic are going to come out of it strong or still around. But if you were a business and you were struggling, you had a lot of debt, JCPenney's is a good example. This is hard to get through. This is hard to get out of. So some of the weaker brands, Pier 1, for example, Pier 1 just announced that they're slowly going to start closing all of their stores. So Pier 1 has been around for a long time, but they're slowly starting to close all of their stores going forward. Bed Bath & Beyond has struggled. I mentioned JCPenney's already. Neiman Marcus filed for bankruptcy a couple of weeks ago. So for a lot of these, COVID-19 has been the last stand. and unfortunately, we're not going to see some of these brands around anymore. So that's some of the things that we're seeing there. One thing holds true right now in COVID-19 as it relates to retail and retail expansion: cash is king. Those retailers that had cash on hand are really going to be the ones that are able to get through this and continue growing as we move out of this. Good example, Lululemon. If you're familiar with them, kind of the lifestyle kind of workout brand for men and women. They had about $1.1 billion in cash. They ended 2019 with that much cash. So they're expecting to expand rapidly. We're continuing to work with sites with them for our communities. So they're continuing an expansion growth going forward. Some other positive news coming out of this is a lot of those retailers that I mentioned, excuse me, a lot of those retailers I mentioned that were doing well or performing well during COVID-19, they're also hiring. So from Walmart to Amazon to CVS to Lowe's to Ace Hardware, a lot of these retailers are hiring, which will help with the unemployment rate and help get some of us back on our feet that have maybe struggled through this time due to some closings. So good news coming out of that. These are some of the stores that have furloughed or laid off staff. But again, a lot of these are starting to hire back. So good news coming out of that. And then one thing I think we're going to see over the next few months is big discounts. Some really big discounts coming from different retailers, coming from different restaurants that maybe have stock on hand that they've got to get rid of. I saw a representative from Marshall's talking about this, that they've got to get rid of their kind of winter and spring clothes and now get ready for the summer. And then even they're thinking fall in the future. So I think we're going to see some big discounts. I feel like I get an email every 2 hours from Old Navy letting me know that they're having a 50% off sale. Same thing with Dick's Sporting Goods. So expect some big discounts from the national and regional brands, but also the small businesses as they look to kind of recoup some of these losses as they move forward. But Aaron, that's kind of in a quick nutshell some of the things that we're expecting to see from a retail standpoint kind of going forward here in the near future.
Great, thanks. That's wow, it's interesting to see how the winners and losers are shaking out on over the pandemic. Well, great. Well, let me. I have just a few questions to discuss with you and get your input on. The first one of those is, how do you imagine the retail experience in communities might change kind of post-COVID? I mean, is it going to be more personalized? How are they going to deal with the distancing? Just some of your thoughts on where that might go.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. You know, kind of even before COVID-19, over the last couple of years, there's been a shift in retail in the industry to focus more on experiential retail. So giving an experience, kind of more personalized type service to the consumers. And honestly, I think that's going to continue. And I think even more now than ever. One thing that's going to be interesting to me, especially with the small businesses, is they have many of these small businesses that did not have curbside or did not have delivery. I think those things are going to have to stick around. You know, their consumers have seen what it's like to get curbside, even from some of the smaller restaurants in town or smaller retailers in town. So I think curbside and delivery is something that's going to continue and really just have to continue. What I think will be interesting, though, is with the regional and the national chains. I think we're going to see some new development plans with new stores where there's more of a focus on curbside, or more dedicated parking spots for that, or a dedicated part of the store for that. And same thing with delivery. And I think that's going to be, you know, really as we continue moving forward, just more focus on experience. And, you know, experiential retail, what that really means is, you know, instead of just walking into a store to grab something, it's an experience. That's what it is. There's better customer service. There's new things to kind of interest you or get you involved. There's, you know, the stores even bringing items out to your car or doing that kind of shopping or the work for you. So I think I think from an experience standpoint, I think that's what we're going to expect going forward is just, like you said, more kind of personalized service, more of a focus on curbside, more of a focus on delivery. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely see there's been a lot of infrastructure changes on how people do their businesses. I know I live in the Santa Cruz area, just south of San Francisco here, and they had, for example, a brewery that overnight became had to build an entire e-commerce system just so they could sell their growlers online and have the pickup. Well, that infrastructure now exists and will become part of their business going forward as offering that kind of technology.
Yeah, I just think I think that's the key. I think the retail, the way we knew it is no longer going to, we're going to see so many changes coming to the retail industry going forward that I think are going to be positive changes. But, you know, it's going to take some of these small businesses, regional businesses, and national businesses just kind of really grasping that and kind of moving with it. So I think you're exactly right.
Have you seen some stories of like retail businesses or communities getting creative to stay in business during the pandemic? Heard some stuff out there. I would be curious.
Absolutely. You know, in order to kind of be successful during this pandemic, a lot of these businesses have had to just shift their complete focus. I take an example. I mentioned I live just outside of Austin, Texas, and suburb of Austin is Georgetown, Texas. And there's actually a business there. It's called Mesquite Creek Outfitters. And it's a really unique business in that it's a bar and restaurant, but it also is an outfitter. So they also have clothing and kind of a men and women's boutique added to it. Well, with Governor Abbott here in Texas doing the stay-at-home orders, they were not considered an essential business. So what they did, and I thought this was interesting, the name of it again is Mesquite Creek Outfitters. They actually partnered with a meats and kind of grocery delivery service and became a grocery store as well. So they were taking orders from their typical customers or their typical patrons that are in there on a regular basis, and they would package these items up. They allowed for delivery of alcohol in Texas during this time. So they would actually put together a grocery package, if you will, partnering with another firm, and would take those and deliver those on a daily basis. And you know, in talking with them, it's been so successful that they're going to continue to do that going forward. So even, you know, 6 months down the road or a year down the road where, you know, COVID-19's a memory, this is something they're going to continue to see move forward. You've seen that with other businesses as well, specifically restaurants. You've seen them, a lot of them focus to groceries and just become grocery delivery services in a sense. Many of the grocery stores around here were running out of items, you know, not just toilet paper, but it's kind of funny, but my kids love crescent rolls. And I cannot tell you that for some reason we could not find crescent rolls anywhere at the grocery store. So I was able to find some by going through a restaurant chain to have them deliver those to us. So I think that's going to be some of the things we've seen, but a lot of businesses have just had to shift and focus. A lot of them had to, you know, especially small businesses, had to really get online, you know, and start serving items online, start doing social media. A lot of small businesses still don't take advantage of social media. A lot of them still don't take advantage of selling their items online. So they were kind of forced into that. And I have some, you know, have talked to many small businesses that have really just excelled by, you know, having an online presence. And they're going to continue that going forward. So there are some good things that have come out of this, even though it's been a kind of a terrible time the last 2 months.
Yeah, great. I heard it down in our neck of the woods over here. There was a movie theater that painted the side of the movie theater with painted it all white, started projecting movies outside, and people were driving in with their cars, and they would call in and they'd bring out food and drinks and popcorn and stuff from inside to the people.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing here. We had a movie theater near us do that, and they were selling popcorn outside. So it was kind of the same, you know, same feel, but they were social distancing and doing all of that. So that's one thing I've been telling our client communities to really stress to their businesses is don't be afraid to be unique. You know, that's what's selling right now is those unique experiences like you just talked about. So that's key in this process.
Yeah, you bet. Well, in the interest of business recruitment and retail recruitment specifically, what kind of changes do you foresee as far as that practice is concerned. With less travel, there's going to be more focus on digital tools. What are you thinking?
Well, just like your clients, we have a lot of the same clients. The Retail Coach and Golden Shovel. We're talking to economic development organizations. We're talking to cities and municipalities, and we're getting that question all the time, Aaron, is, how is the retail recruitment industry going to change? And, a couple of things. Number one, you've got to go digital. You've got to get this information to these site selectors. So even though we were kind of in a downtime where a lot of us were stuck at home the last 2 months, these site selectors are still having to find sites. They're still having to find communities they need to go to. So what's shifted is, instead of in-person visits with these retailers or restaurants, or instead of going to conferences to meet with prospects, we're having a lot of Zoom meetings just like this with prospects. So if you're an economic developer, you need to stay in touch with your developers. You need to stay in touch with your prospects, your retailers. This is a great way to do it. I had one retailer tell me that they were using this time to get their sites ready. And as soon as the stay-at-home order was lifted, they were going out to these communities and really going to kind of analyze the sites. So I think from a recruitment strategy standpoint, you've got to be able to pitch your community. You've got to be able to do all of that kind of in an online presence. And, coming up with new digital marketing tools, getting that information they need on a quick basis to them, and having that available is key. Setting up videos, setting up kind of online drives where you can kind of show on a map, the sites that are available. I think that's key. And I know at Golden Shovel, y'all have your virtual reality console product that y'all are, I would assume seen an uptick in interest because of this.
Oh, there's been a massive uptick in interest in virtual reality. We're talking to groups all around the world right now. One of those ideas that their time has come and kind of forcing us to explore these new options. To your point, from our experience, there is already a strong trend towards the personalization of marketing. And a lot of the tools that we've been using have been more and more about customizing very specific messages to very specific audiences, and just getting that message into that more precision, more surgical approach to marketing. And that's included a lot of tools like lead forensics, or a lead tracking software, where we can see what businesses are coming to visit to see if our marketing is validating the efforts of our marketing. Having the HubSpot inbound marketing process, where we're providing content to a specific industry or a specific person, and then being able to nurture those leads. That kind of customization just had jet fuel poured on it, because now not only do we have to be more precise on our digital marketing, but the marketing budgets are smaller, and so you have to be more effective, especially in the recruitment side. We know that economic development groups, 90% of their energy right now, if not more, is going to be towards business retention, and it has to be. Yeah. And so the marketing outreach that is going to happen is going to be very targeted. And virtual reality, like you mentioned, absolutely, being able to have a virtual meeting, be able to send a headset instead of a team of people, and give a FAM tour, be able to give a site tour. We're seeing upticks in some of these digital tools like SizeUp, for example, where they focus on business data, business intelligence, so that small businesses can get support. How do you talk to 4,000 businesses in your community if you're a one-person economic developer team sitting at home? Yeah. And some of the digital tools are the only way to get that reach. I put together, Aaron, just a quick poll to see. There's two polls, two questions. One of them is about what tools you might have been using coming into COVID, and then another one being see what kind of tools I might be planning for coming out of COVID now. And why don't we give that a run? And if you guys are in front of your Zooms, you should be able to answer the poll. Okay, here's the first one. Select the digital marketing tools currently utilized in your retail attraction toolkit. Select as many as apply. It's a multiple choice, so let's just So retail marketing plan, making sure you got a plan for retail specifically. You got your website up and running. Are you using LinkedIn, Facebook, Google Analytics, certainly for web traffic, and then some of the ones I was just talking about, like HubSpot for lead nurturing, lead forensics, or other type of visitor tracking where you can track the companies themselves, and virtual reality. So virtual reality, certainly they're going to be making spherical videos and VR assets that they can use for virtual meetings.
Yeah. Just while we wrap up, while this poll finishes up here, I think you're right. I think a lot of the economic development organizations across the country have had to shift their focus from recruitment to more retention to help those existing businesses, which, for a lot of the economic development organizations isn't typically their focus. So I think we're going to continue to see that at least for the next year or two as a focus on retention. But I want to stress that recruitment needs to continue to be a big part of that, because a lot of these recruitment deals, whether you're trying to get a movie theater or you're just trying to get a restaurant to town, these deals take time. The typical life cycle of a retail recruitment prospect is 12 to 24 months. So the goal is to be able to manage your time, that you're focused on retention, but also recruitment at the same time.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, well, let's. The first poll is in. It looks like the results are being shared. So we have about 38% with a retail marketing plan in place. 93% are focused on or have their website in action, which is absolutely critical. So I'd hope everybody is going into this with their website in gear. Looks like LinkedIn and Facebook have about 44, 64% respectively. Facebook's going to carry a big role here in getting people rehired and getting people organized for jobs. And LinkedIn is going to play a bigger role than ever as far as networking and communication with the professionals. It's like 27% of Google Analytics, fewer or less, 9% on HubSpot, 16% on lead forensics, and 7% on virtual reality. You're absolutely going to see those grow dramatically and relatively quickly. Let's run one more quick poll. It's the exact same list of groups, but poll 2 is around which of these tools are you now considering implementing now that COVID's hit? So these might be ones that you didn't necessarily have in action going into COVID, but are ready to try a different approach. And while this poll is coming in, could start opening up another question I had for you, Aaron. That's what should an economic developer be doing now to get ahead of the recovery process? Like, what are some just next steps for people taking in all this information so fast?
Yeah, well, number one, I would just recommend to take a harder look at your retail marketing plan. Because of COVID-19, we're all kind of having to shift, but a lot of communities that we had talked to in the recent past were interested in recruiting a grocery store, or they were interested in recruiting a hardware or home improvement store. But prior to COVID-19, those sectors were struggling. So what I would recommend now is that those sectors are doing well is to maybe take a harder look at your recruitment strategy to make sure you're going after some of these sectors that are doing incredibly well. I think that's important to just really kind of look at everything, kind of look at long-term as well. We're going to get back to where we're having these trade shows. So I think about like the International Council of Shopping Centers conventions. I think about the Retail Live trade shows where basically these economic development organizations will actually go try to recruit retailers or restaurants or get their name out there. I would already be looking. I know budgeting is something that a lot of these municipalities and economic development organizations are going through right now. Don't forget about marketing. Don't forget about these trade shows that are coming up. Start planning ahead for that, because a lot of these site selectors are going to have deals that they have to make happen or have to do in 2020 or 2021. And you want to make sure your community is at the top of that list.
Right, absolutely. Let me quickly touch. Our poll results came in. It looks like there's 40% are going to be putting together a retail strategy sorts for marketing, which is excellent. People have been working on 32% working on their website, 26% on LinkedIn, 20% on Facebook, and looks like HubSpot, there's going to be some more interest in generating more personalized lead generation from your website. And then looks like lead forensics and virtual reality has a big jump at 38%. That's going to, there's going to be a lot of new use cases for virtual reality. We're going to see that really mature in the Economic Developers Toolkit, especially this year and going into next year. So this is great. One of the things you had just shared, let me get back, is as far as what businesses need to be doing now and reaching out as far as the trade shows. Do you think some of the trade shows themselves are going to change?
I do.
Like, will there be more virtual approach, or?
So we're already starting to see that right now. This was the first time in, I can't remember if it's 13 or 14 years that this week I wasn't in Las Vegas for the International Council of Shopping Centers convention. And
right.
So I don't know what to do with myself because that's typically where I am during this week. But we're already starting to see some organizations like International Council of Shopping Centers and some others that are really taking a harder focus or approach on kind of the virtual meetings and those sort of things, and kind of the networking that kind of you talked about. So I do think that is going to be something we see going forward here. Aaron, I'm going to share my screen again real quick, and I'm going to show just 2 more slides real quick. So give me a second here to pull that up.
Certainly.
One thing that we do expect to see is really an influx in available big box and junior box space going forward. So, a lot of times retailers and restaurants, the things they want to know about your community, they like your community, but they want to know what sites are available. You talked about something that economic developers can be doing going forward to get ahead of this strategy. Go ahead and identify those prospects that are probably not going to make it through. Do you have a JCPenney's in your community? Do you have a Pier 1? Do you have a Logan's Roadhouse? Some of these that are not likely going to make it out of this, be prepared. Be kind of putting a plan together to fill some of these spaces. There's going to be an influx of junior box and big box space on the market in the next few months. And, finding prospects to go into there will be key. So I did want to emphasize that as far as what should EDOs be doing now is really trying to get ahead of the recovery process, is identifying what properties are going to be available, what sites are available, and then getting those out to prospects.
That's I wanted to add in, Aaron, another thing, so much of what we've been working on is just writing success stories, because built in a solid success story is all the great reasons why businesses should move into a community. And what we're finding right now to get ahead of the recovery, you think of it this way: in the competition of communities across the country, the big piece is to recover faster than other communities.
Yeah.
Because there's too many unknowns to make any stake in the sand on this is exactly how quickly we'll recover. But you can get ahead of the effort and be in a different position than perhaps you were going into COVID. And there's still so many great success stories out there that you can, I believe, like we were talking earlier, like some of the creative approaches that businesses are taking, that's not just great for communicating externally, but it's great for your own community too, to show that you're finding good news at a time when there's so much uncertainty, and help generate new ideas for people and show that there's an active business community that's hanging together. I think those stories are very much available and around right now, and that stimulating them and getting them.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, we don't have a crystal ball, but at the Retail Coach, we try to keep a pulse on the retail industry and what's going to happen going forward. And kind of our feeling right now is for most states, most communities, March was okay, because you know, from a sales tax and retail sales standpoint, you had that first 2 weeks of March where you saw a lot of the panic buying take place. And then the last 2 weeks when these stay-at-home orders started to play in, you saw a huge decrease in retail sales. April was down terribly for most communities, just because most of us were at home, stay at home in place. And then May, we're starting to see some kind of comeback there. But I think really from a retail standpoint, where we're going to see a comeback in the retail industry is probably going to be the really starting in the third quarter, but really the fourth quarter is when we're expecting to see a huge retail come back. And the hope is that there's a big retail bump so that a lot of the losses that took place in March, April, May, those will be made up for with that bump we're going to see kind of fourth quarter time period. So don't hold us to that. But from what we're hearing from industry experts, what we're hearing from a lot of the site selectors and retailers is fourth quarter is really what we're expecting that retail bump to take place.
Got it. So people are really focusing. What kind of I'm going to open up to questions. We have some questions coming in, but I have one further one. With a handful of different states we've been working in, we've seen some different opening practices where they're trying to, some are opening quickly, some are not, some are challenging the opening. It's just a complete social experiment, seeing how this is all going to play out. But one of the concerns we certainly have heard from the food industry is that they are allowed to reopen at a 30 to 40% capacity in a lot of states, and that a 30-40% capacity isn't enough to cover the margins to keep them in business.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know if there's what the solution is to that, but if you've seen some interesting or creative ways that some of the businesses are able to at least hold steady until it opens up more.
Yeah, so the key to that, I think, is the online and kind of curbside and delivery part of it. We're seeing a lot of restaurants partner with groups like Favor that will deliver the food and those sort of things, even small businesses doing that. But we've heard the same thing from the restaurant industry, that just opening up at 25% or just opening up at 30%, we're not doing enough sales to really cover bringing our employees or our staff back on. But what we are hearing is 50% is kind of that cutoff where you're finally starting to see a lot of these restaurants open back up, but they need at least 50%. So that seems to be the line, 50%, that we're starting to see these restaurants open back up. Because if you've noticed this, a lot of especially the national restaurants, when it's announced that they're opening, they can open at 25 or 40%. They're just not doing it. They can't hit their overhead costs and all of that there. So 50% is what we need to see, and it'll be a slow kind of trickle there. But I think a continued focus on really curbside and delivery, I think, is what's going to help sustain and keep these businesses going.
Yeah, I wonder if there'll be a shift to outdoor seating also, like finding more outdoor scenarios, since it seems that COVID's particularly contagious indoors.
We're seeing that, with the temperatures rising and a lot of across the U.S., there's talk whether COVID-19 will be killed at a certain temperature. And, restaurants are in on that as well. And what they're doing is, you're right, they're having more outdoor seating. I've seen where communities are allowing, the use of sidewalks and the use of areas in front of stores to open it up for more tables and those sort of things. I've even seen some communities go where they're closing down, a lane, one of the lanes on their main street to allow for that. So I think that's going to be something that's really key going forward. That's hard to do when you're like me, you live in Texas, and it was we almost hit 100 yesterday, and it's only May. So that'll be interesting to see, but especially some of the northeastern states, western states, I think that's going to be something we see continually happen for the near future, and might just be a trend we see forever. So
right. Okay, well, this has been a most interesting discussion for me. We have a bunch of questions that have come in, so I'm just going to start going through and see how many we can answer before the end of our time. First one, there's been a request for a copy of the slide deck.
Yeah, we'll get a copy.
Okay, sounds great. We'll do that. And here's the second question that came in. Do you think build-outs of QSRs will look different? Think of how Chick-fil-A has employees lining the drive-thrus now. I expect others will follow. Do you think this will force retailers to rethink their build-outs?
Absolutely. You saw this with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has been doing this kind of model forever, where they have employees actually out there taking the orders instead of your typical just 1-lane drive-through or 2-lane drive-through. They've kind of got it down, and we're actually seeing that. So I do think we're going to see a lot of that. There's a couple of restaurants in the town where I live that have already started kind of taking over the Chick-fil-A model, I guess, because it's been so successful. But I do think we're going to see some new layouts to the QSRs. Maybe less internal space, so less eating space inside, more space devoted to kind of the drive-throughs and maybe some outdoor eating areas, kind of like you talked about. So I do think that's going to be something we see going forward, is just a complete change in the layouts of some of these fast food restaurants, but also I think some of the casual sit-down restaurants, we're going to see more outdoor seating as well.
Great, yeah, interesting. Another attendee mentioned, have you heard that Starbucks was demanding huge discounts from landlords? Have other retailers been doing the same thing?
Yeah, we've seen that a lot. It's just requesting or asking for some rent relief during this time. One of the things that we've seen is a lot of these landlords having to kind of change up the way they do rent. I think going forward, one thing we'll see more now is percentage rents. So a landlord getting a percentage of sales going forward, at least for the near future, versus a specific set amount of a rent, just because of what we've gone through the last couple of months. And whether it's a national retailer or a small business, nobody really has been able to do well from a sales standpoint. So I do think I've heard that about Starbucks. I've heard that about some other businesses as well. But, we're going to need some kind of give and take from landlords and also tenants to kind of come up with a happy medium there. But that is something we're seeing, definitely.
Great. Another question that came in is, what are some tips and tricks for getting businesses online for e-commerce?
Yes. So, excuse me. We've been saying this for years. If you're a business and you don't have a website, nowadays you don't exist. Because I know if you're like me or you're like my wife, or that's the first thing we look. If we're going to visit a community or we're going to go visit a restaurant, the first thing we look for is their menu online. Can we order online? Those sort of things. So it's hard to say what are ways to get them to do that, but I would just say encourage them to do that. There's all kinds of numbers out there, really just showing what the opportunities are from a sales standpoint. Look at some platforms. Shopify is a good platform. There's some other platforms out there that make it easy to have an online presence. So maybe get some of those tools in front of them. I think that's really the key going forward. Also, don't forget about just not having a website, but you also have to have a social media presence. And it's silly to me to think that some businesses don't have social media presence, but a lot of them still do not. So all of those things need to kind of play into that online presence.
Yeah, I completely support that. And for some of the companies that may not have, their business may not be in technology, it can be a little intimidating getting an e-commerce platform up and running, but there are tools out there now where it's pretty packaged up. You're going to spend most of your time putting products in versus trying to get your e-commerce system to work. I think more of it's going to be logistics inside your retail store, getting whether you're going to offer delivery or the takeout or getting things packaged and sanitized.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see a lot of changes, but you've got to have an online presence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question. Gordmans has started to take over the Beals and Stage stores pre-COVID. Do you know if their plans will move forward?
So I'm not sure. There's a lot of, and it's actually Gordmans has started to take over a lot of the Beals and Stage stores. I'm hearing, Stage has filed for bankruptcy. I'm hearing that there are going to be some of the stores where Gordmans will not take over. There were plans, but now because of the bankruptcy and kind of the restructuring, they're probably not going to open up. So it's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis. I don't know the exact answer to that, but we're not going to see them open as many stores as originally thought.
Got it. Here's a good question for you. Does Retail Coach work with cities of all sizes or just the super rural communities?
No, we work with communities of all sizes. Communities of 1,500 all the way up to we're currently working with a community of about 200,000. So we're working with all sizes. Yeah.
Excellent. Can you elaborate on your slide regarding projected drops in sales and/or sales tax revenue for April, each remaining quarter of 2020?
Yeah. So we came up with a product. It's basically a COVID-19 impact tracker, Aaron. And what we've been doing on that is it's impossible to track sales real time, but what we can track is we can track visits to the community. So using stuff like cell phone data to track how many visitors are walking into a grocery store, how many visitors are walking into an apparel store. And, we have the ability to run that on any community. But what we found from that is there's been a huge drop in April, but it all depends on the state you're in. So if you're in Texas, we've seen the openings happen in May. Your numbers are not going to be as bad as they were in April, but they're still going to be pretty bad. So we've got some projections out there that maybe I can, whenever we send over these slides, we can kind of share some thoughts on that. But we're expecting a slow kind of incremental increase May, June, July, and then we're expecting kind of full force back in August is kind of that time period that we're expecting.
Excellent. And we have the attendees' names. You can also reach out to them individually with additional information.
Yeah, sure can.
Speaking of that, what's one of, there's been, I know in Kentucky and in California, there's been significant concerns about people getting sick in a retail location and then having to suffer lawsuits, or that's the fear, and that they're nervous to open up without any kind of protections. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Well, and that's why, even though in some of these states that are back open for business, you still haven't seen some of those retailers or restaurants open. And you're right, they're scared of a lawsuit. Their insurance does not necessarily cover pandemics and some of these other things. So that's why I think some of the businesses have not opened back up yet, even though they have the ability to do that, is because of that. So, it's going to be, that's going to be something we're going to have to deal with, kind of going forward here. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of these retailers and restaurants open back up. There's just going to be so many changes to it. Some stores are requiring you to wear masks. So Costco, for example, every Costco across the country is requiring you to wear a mask. There's other stores that, are putting up the plexiglass guards at the checkouts and those sort of things. So I think before some of these stores open back up, they want to make sure those safeguards are in place. And obviously it's for the safety of the consumers, but in many cases it's more for the safety of those retailers or those restaurants, that they're not sued or lawsuits don't come at them because of that.
Yeah, right. Here's an interesting one. I think 50% of the bars and restaurants will not be able to reopen across the country. Who will they target as customers now lost savings in 401s? Consumer spending will change. So,
yeah, it's interesting. That's just the restaurants and bars. I mean, I kind of believe. I think we're going to see a big bump in that in restaurants and bars. I think we're going to see a month or two where people are a little bit scared to go eat at restaurants and bars. But I do think we're going to get back to where we were, going out to eat for almost every meal. I mean, as a country, we were, prior to COVID-19, we were spending more money out to eat than we were at the grocery store. So I think we're going to come back to that. Just human nature, habits. I think we're going to come back to that kind of being the case there. So I think these bars in particular are going to start realizing that, hey, we need to carry food too. We need to have a contingency plan that if COVID-19 does come back, how can we keep sales coming through? How can we keep those things happening? So I think that's an industry that, especially the bar industry, that I think is going to be forced to change kind of moving forward here.
Yeah, got it. All right, another question. A lot of questions for you, so that's great. Are you aware of any survey results out there asking shoppers how they want to shop for clothes, shoes, accessories? I mean, seeing anything about a change of interest in consumer behavior?
So it's a great question. I mean, I've seen some polls that have just come out trying to start looking at some of those things. I mean, I mentioned the International Council of Shopping Centers. They've got a couple of polls out right now similar to that. I haven't seen any real data yet, but I think in the next few weeks, next month, we'll start to see some of that data come out. no question consumer behavior is going to change. The question is how much. So I think we'll see more on that as we move forward here.
Yep. All right, next one now. How should economic developers think about how much to support their local retailers given the economic uncertainty? Is there a checklist to consider when evaluating which business to support? That's a tough question.
Yeah, say that question one more time if you don't mind.
Sure. How should economic developers think about how much to support their local retailers given the economic uncertainty? Is there a checklist to consider when evaluating which businesses to support?
You know, honestly, I think every community is unique. You know, I'm a big believer that if you're going to be a successful community, you've got to have really a healthy mix of local, regional, and national retailers and restaurants. So I would say that's really a case-by-case basis. You know, what I would encourage you to do is kind of look at your retail sales and see what percentage of your retail sales comes from each of those categories, and then kind of base your strategy on, you know, helping existing businesses, going after and recruiting businesses, kind of basing on what your retail sales, kind of how that breaks down.
Good. How much of retail recruitment comes down to luck and timing versus the strategy and team to outsource the connections to?
So I love to get lucky, and I love for retailers to come. I mean, I think probably every community on this webinar here, there's no question you're going to have some retailers, you're going to have some restaurants located in your community in the next couple of years. But if you're like me, you like to have a strategy. You like to have a plan to go after some of those, because what happens is you're competing with communities all around you. So right around you, and then also throughout the state. And typically the way it works is a restaurant or a retailer will say, we're going to open 15 stores in this state. Well, you as an economic development organization, you've got to be out there kind of marketing yourselves to get them to come in. And, you know, if you're willing to wait and get lucky, then I think you'll have some successes. But if you really put together a strong recruitment strategy and really focus and kind of like we talked about here, you know, whether it's tracking those leads through HubSpot or attending some of these conferences, you're going to see more come out of that. So most of us will get lucky. Retail and restaurants will come in. But if you want to take it to that next level, you've got to put a marketing strategy together.
Great. I think that's excellent advice. One of the questions came in and said, how do communities reach out for business success stories? What questions should be asked? What methods, polls, surveys, emails, etc.? We reach out to businesses to curate success stories on behalf of our clients all the time. And, you know, it starts, you know, we always start with the economic developers. So we're asking, what have you heard and who's thriving and who can we talk to and reach out that way. But beyond that, you can do a call for via social media, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, for call for stories. Like, are you doing creative ways of running your business here? And have people reach out to you and tell you what they're up to, and then you can help find stories that way. We have had some success with polls, because like right now, you know, being in communication, you can't over communicate right now with your businesses. You have to be able to let them know you're there, let them get this information as it's pouring out. And so sometimes, along with a poll that you might be going in to check on the health of your businesses, you can add in a question or two to say, what creative ways are you making it, and would they be up for being interviewed or having a story curated to promote? So those are a few of the different angles we've seen for gathering success stories. Yeah.
I think that's it. I completely agree with all of that. And the more success stories you can share, the better, because, you know, other retailers, other restaurants, other developers look at that and they want to go to communities where you have some of those success stories. So I think that's key.
Yeah. And I'll also take this opportunity quick. Golden Shovel did build a COVID-19 resources page. When we as you imagine, the day the COVID lockdown hit and stay-in-place orders came, we got contacted by every one of our clients at once to get this information out to save the jobs in their communities. And so as a reflex, we built a portal out that included a a lot of evergreen content that can be easily taken and just customized a little bit to your community to be sent out, and that includes full articles, posts. We found that we had economic developers looking for news when they should have been out talking to businesses. So we've curated a lot of the current news, all of the webinars that have been going on all over the place. We found quite a few of those and have added them to a list. So if you go to the Golden Shovel site, there is a COVID-19 link. Since then, we've expanded it beyond our clients and is now available to any economic development organizations that could use that content to get it out and just save time. Save time and money. So that's the goal. So feel free, anybody listening, to take advantage of that. Okay, let's see. We are starting to run out of time, but I was just trying to squeeze in a couple more of these questions. Let's see. How do you see retail marketing themselves after this? And I'm not sure if that's posed directly towards the retail stores themselves or retail recruitment. I guess we've talked a fair amount about retail recruitment, but as far as the retail businesses themselves, do you see any shifts in how they market themselves?
It'll be interesting. I think there will be more of a shift to, and that we've already kind of seen this even pre-COVID-19, to more like social media marketing. Whether it's Instagram or selling the items online through Instagram or some of the social media. So I think social media will be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, one last one. Let's take this.
Yeah.
How do communities that do not have existing available retail space compete with all of the vacant retail space that will be available with store closings and restructurings? Yeah,
that's a great question. It's going to be tough, to be completely honest with you, because there will be vacant space available that you're going to be competing with. And it's most of the time it's easier to go into vacant space than it is to build a new building and then lease it out that way. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's going to be a lot of competition between economic development communities going forward for those retailers and those restaurants that are expanding. One way would be for, there to be some help, whether it's through, incentives, whether that's a sales tax rebate, or, other types of incentives to kind of help and put your community ahead of others. So you're going to see that is going to be, that's a tough question to answer because I don't know the answer yet. But, maybe try to look at your downtown areas. I think we're going to see a shift for a lot of these retailers and restaurants, even some of the national ones that haven't looked in downtown areas in some time, that kind of moved away from downtowns to kind of go back to downtown areas. So that's a hard one to answer. Time will kind of tell on that. But, anything you can do to kind of put your community above, competing communities and, whether it's, I will say this, location is key when it comes to retail and restaurants. So even if it's, a little bit cheaper rents, or you can move into an existing space, if it's not a good location, that's not going to be a successful business. So, really kind of continue to emphasize what makes your community better than the rest and why your community is the right location.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, we are at the top of our hour. Aaron, thank you for joining us today. I just really appreciated the discussion. I learned a lot, and I hope the attendees that were listening in gleaned some good points off of it. Just to remind everybody, we're going to be sharing this recording as well as the slides and out to everybody. So you'll receive that. It'll also be available on our website. So I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions. Please feel free to contact Aaron or myself. Just we can follow up with additional answers for you. We know that there's a lot of information that needs to be sent out now. So we're here to help. And with that said, do you have any closing comments on your side, Aaron?
No, not really. Just appreciate y'all inviting us to do this. We speak highly of your group all the time, and just are thankful for this partnership. And I think this was good. We might have to do this again, and maybe our group can host it next time. Maybe, and we'll see kind of how the trends have changed and those sort of things. So would love to invite you to do that on our series sometime in the near future.
You bet. I'll look forward to that. So thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.